My name is Nairi and I'm running an adoption support channel, and today we're going to be doing a book review for Sally Donovan's new book, which is yet to be released. And so Jessica Kingsley asked me to do a review for you. So the book is called The Strange and Curious Guide to Trauma. Here it is. And it is intended for the age group 8 to 12 years, and so I've read it all the way through. And what I will say about it is, even though it's intended for children, I actually think if you want a really simple breakdown of trauma, actually you could get it for yourself and you would learn a lot, because what it does is it tries to explain the science of trauma and what happens to our bodies and the triggers that happen later in life, and it puts it in really simple terms for a child or a youth to be able to kind of begin to understand what's happening to them. So let me just take you through an overview of the book, then I'm going to read you some sections and show you some pictures as well, and hopefully you'll get a taste of what the book is really about, what it's really like. So the first thing to say about it is all of the characters are laid out at the beginning of the book, and those characters kind of feature throughout the book as well. But the main character is somebody called Ordinary Joe, and I think what Sally is trying to present to us here is that on the outside somebody can look ordinary, they can have gone through an awful lot in their lives and we're not going to know about that. And Ordinary Joe is just having an ordinary day, and then what happens out of the blue is he goes up to a hilltop on a swing, and before he knows it, behind him out jumps from the tree this enormous baboon, and it's described with all these scary features, and it tells the story of the reactions, his bodily reactions to that event, and how he takes flight and runs away. So throughout the book you go back to the story of Joe, but you also get weaved in the science of what is happening to Joe going through his traumatic experience. And I just want to show you this picture here. This is a section where it's describing how trauma works and how the physical effects of trauma on the body. So I'll just quickly read this to you. Our book about trauma features buzzy bees stuck in your tummy, yes, and also science and superheroes, carrots and lambs, lollies, and unfortunately for me, baboons. It's very quirky the way it's written. I mean, the title gives that away. And it's fun, so when a child is reading it, they're going to laugh at times about what is happening to Joe and how these different characters are described. So what she does is she compares, first of all, some carrots. So it mentions carrots in there. And what she is explaining to the reader is that people get different starts in life, and they may be different. So one carrot is smooth and super wonderful, the other carrot has got lots of quirky features and is not so has not had such an easy start. And she explains how the soil is not the choice of the carrot, that the carrot cannot help the soil that they were brought up in. And by using that analogy, she explains to the child that it's not their fault. I think this is a really key point throughout the book. It's not their fault that they've experienced trauma, and it's not their fault that they continue to struggle with it. So a really important point about the book as well is how she describes that some people don't understand trauma, and there's expectations that trauma will go away in some way. And she makes 3 points about this to make the child understand that others may not understand what they're going through. And she gives 3 points. So for example, point number 1, when all the scary dangers have gone away, a person's body will know it's safe and go back to normal. And she's saying, no, that's wrong, that's not what happens. And so throughout the book she's tracking the fact that a child will continue to maybe experience trauma. She's honest in the book, and she says in the book that there is no cure for trauma, but there are things that the child or the youth can do to help themselves. Now, even more interestingly in a way is the way that she goes through the science of what is happening and puts it in layman's terms, in very simple terms for the child. So she explores, I don't know if you can see that there, that is an almond shape, which she explains is in the brain. Amygdala, she calls her, and it's part of what happens in the brain in an emergency situation. So when an emergency happens, this superpower is switched on and goes to action, and then this superpower is looking for danger all around all the time. And she explains how this one with the cortisol and with the lightning bolt one, I think it was so you've got Amy, you've got Adrian, who's the adrenaline, that's it, and Courtney, who's the cortisol, and how they all act together to kind of alert the individual that danger is around. And so as you go through the book, then you're shown how trauma develops in the beginning, which is the story around the baboon jumping out the tree, how it can continue to affect the child bodily with these 3 things going around, which is the science of it, and then how people don't understand about trauma and how there is a way of kindness toward humans to move forward to help them with trauma. So the nice bit near the end is she does a final chapter, and actually in the end it's quite sweet because the baboon ends up not being actually as terrifying. I don't know if you can see him doing Staying Alive there in the disco. Actually the baboon ends up being not terrifying, but that's just a nice little twist at the end. But she says at the end, this book is for you. So she's talking about Ordinary Joe, but she puts at the end, this book is for you. Thank you for reading it or listening to it or reading it aloud to someone you care about. You're helping to spread the knowledge and to spread the kindness. Hooray for knowledge and kindness, and hooray for you. So it's a really, really nice ending to the book. So I've given it briefly to one of my sons. Both my sons are kind of behind in their development, shall we say. So I gave it to my son who's 12, and he started reading it, and to start with he said, oh, I don't understand it. And I think to start with it takes a while to get into, because you've got the characters at the beginning, it needs to get into the flow of the story around what happens to Joe with the baboon, because in the beginning he's just watching bin lorries go by because he's Ordinary Joe, so it takes a while to get into it. And the other thing I'd say is if your child has never heard the word trauma before and that's never been presented to them as a problem, then obviously you're going to have to sort of semi-explain it a little bit before they start getting into the book, even though of course it is going to explain that to you. I think when my boys look at it they think, well, why do I want to read The Strange and Curious Guide to Trauma? Because actually the word trauma is not really used with them. I might say to them, you know, the effects of the past, or when you're feeling a bit wobbly, or when you're feeling a bit fearful. So one thing I would suggest is if your child is developmentally a little bit further behind, or more, you know, possibly more anxious about reading a book like this, then I would suggest that it would be really, really good for you to read it with them, or be around when they're reading it, so if they have questions about the chapters then they can ask you about it. So the chapters are really, really short, and really, I mean, it is not difficult from an English language point of view for a child of that age to read it, unless of course they have really, really great difficulties with reading. So for example, the chapter number 8 there, it's just a few pages long, some more pictures there you can see, and that's it. We're on to chapter 9. So it's very easily digestible for a child of that age, I would say. But I would say that it's also a really nice book for professionals to use with children, or for parents to actually sit and read with their child, regardless of whether the child can actually read it and understand it. I think it's a good conversational book. So Jessica Kingsley have said to me that they are thinking of bringing this book out toward the end of March. So look out for it if you're interested in it and you have a child of this age, or even if you just want to get your hands on it, because Sally Donovan, if you've not heard of her, is a very famous author. She's an award-winning author, and she's also an adopter herself, and she's very, very popular, and she has other books. I'm sure if you type into Google search Sally Donovan, you will see other books that are for children and other books that she's written as well. So I hope you've enjoyed that little book review. If you have, please subscribe, give me a thumbs up, and check out my channel, which is all about adoption topics. I cover therapeutic parenting, attachment and bonding, just general adoption parenting as well, and I look forward to seeing you on my channel. Thank you.